Santa Claus in Trouble HD. I get the feeling that the only one in trouble here is me. I wanted to play the FMV game about being chased through the mall by a giant spider, but 'tis the season. The game is a 3D platformer where you play as Santa Claus trying to get to the end of each stage while avoiding trolls, birds, and whatever random other enemies they felt like throwing in. There are presents lying all over the place, but the game surprisingly doesn't really care if Santa Claus has any gifts or not. They only give you points for the leaderboard, and free tip, never ever give the slightest duke about an online leaderboard. They are almost always hacked by trolls. The game's controls are flaming garbage. The up arrow key and W move forward, the down arrow key and S move backward, left and right turn you in place. There is no way to walk sideways, and the mouse turns you left and right the same as the arrow keys. The mouse does not let you look up or down, so I just stopped using the damn thing to play with nothing but keys. There is absolutely zero way to control the camera, which led to me getting stuck about 5 seconds in. I fell down a ledge and the camera got lodged into a wall where I thought I had died and the game bugged. But no, I'm fine. Just jumping into a ledge that I couldn't see. So you can't look up, you can't look down, you can't move side to side, you have no camera control, and you can only walk straight forward and straight backward. It's like playing as a dude in a neck brace, or Michael Keaton's bat suit. Same thing, really. Every level is filled with presents that you can pick up. 60 purple ones, 30 yellow ones, and 10 rainbow ones. Picking up these gifts will give you extra lives. If you find all of them, all 60 of the big purple gifts, or you don't get squat. Miss a single one of the yellow presents, and you might as well have not bothered with any of them. Like this treetop, for example. I have my choice of 2 pathways that lead upward, and as established, Santa has some kind of neck condition to where he can't look up. So I take one path, cross tons of tricky jumps leading further into the level, and oh look! The other path had yellow gifts that are just gone now, unless I do tons of painful backtracking. Don't need to mess with those pickups now, I guess. I don't know how much clearer this needs to be. You made a collectible-based platforming game. You yourself remark that the yellow and rainbow packages are hidden on purpose. You need to be able to look around the levels, and you need to be able to look up! The platforming has more issues than just the controls. The camera pivots downward to look at the ground every single time that you jump. It's supposed to show the ground so you can gauge where you're going to land, only it doesn't. It just kind of blocks your view of both forward and downward, and it still only barely gives you the foggiest idea of where you're falling. You have a double jump, but the dookie camera barely gives you any depth perception and makes it hard to tell when you've actually landed from a jump. So it's extremely common for you to think that you've landed, try jumping again, only to fire your double jump and fall to your doom. You have to get into the habit of listening for when you've landed from every damn jump, or it's gonna get you killed. Also, pretty much every platformer that's worth a damn has a shadow directly under your character at all times, so that you'll always know exactly where you'll land from your jump. This game doesn't do that. The shadow is cast realistically from some kind of off-screen light source, so all the jumping is guesswork as to where you'll land. Guesswork from a camera that barely shows you what you're doing! And any time that you have to jump off a ledge to a platform beneath you, it's a total leap of faith because you can't look down! Okay, I need to quit on the controls. What else can I focus on? Oh, spikes! How does touching the side of the spike kill me? The side is not the pointy bit! I have seen so many games mess this up. The side of the spike does not hurt you! The level design is fine as far as nondescript platforms floating in a void go. Nothing remarkable, but nothing totally unfair. Not until you get to World 2, you have to travel across long platforms that are swinging back and forth over a bottomless pit. Pretty standard for platforming games, except the coding for this particular game is, what's the word? Bullshit! The game friggin' breaks down trying to process you walking on an incline that's moving, and it leads to you walking on and clipping into the air so that the platform slips out from under you and you die. Okay, simple solution. Only move when the platform's at the ends of its movement and stand still while it's in motion. Except a bird killed me while I was stuck still because it flies right through the platform's path. Shart. This was when I got my first game over, and it's a good time to point out how the game handles lives. You get extra lives from picking up gifts and grabbing statues, but if you die and get sent back to the menu, or if you have to stop playing for whatever reason, it doesn't track how many lives you had. No matter where you start playing, you're kicked back down to 3. And 3 lives ain't much to work with. So if you're stuck on a difficult level, or in this case, a level that's bugged to high heaven, the only way to get more lives is to replay tons of levels leading up to it in one straight shot. You also can't afford to spend too long bungling around the levels looking for said lives and pickups because each level is timed. And even though the levels have checkpoints, it doesn't track and restore your time if you die. The clock keeps ticking. And there is 0 warning, audio, visual, or otherwise, when time's running low to remind you. I just looked over one level and went, oh shit! I have 8 seconds left! All these basic quality of life functions that are common to the genre are just missing! They excuse the missing features by listing the genre as an arcade game, even though this is the slowest and most devoid of action arcade game I think I've ever seen. Alright, finally past the swinging plank, what's next? Ah, son of a bitch. Another swinging plank. And this time with 2 birds specifically positioned to where it's near impossible not to have them sweep you off the platform. Okay, now I'm mad. They're leaning into how glitchy the terrain is for difficulty. It was at this point in the game that I completely gave up on even trying to collect all of the presents, because what's the point? They're completely worthless if you miss one. Going down all the non-essential paths for presents is only going to cost you lives, and the levels are getting so dickish and glitchy that you need to hold on to your precious 3 lives just to survive to the end. So what's the point? And no, the presents are not a collectible that's vital to 100% completion or some crap. The game doesn't track anything. It sure as shit doesn't keep track of how many presents you found in each level. The game only ramps up the dickery from here. Next level, there are birds camped on every major jump, and you have to start doing platforming over endless round logs. This normally wouldn't be a problem, except the game has another major bug. If you're standing on any kind of a curved surface, it's a total crapshoot whether the game will actually let you jump or not. I pressed jump like a dozen times at that fall, and it didn't do anything. You just have to mash the jump button, desperately try to maneuver yourself, and hope for the best. They also have the classic platforming terrain where you have a plank with a pivot in the middle. You stand on one side and tilt the plank up to create a ramp that you can use as a ramp. And oh cool, I got an extra life. Wait, where do I go from here? There's nowhere to jump to! You cheating piece of shit! This was an optional path to grab a few presents and there's no way to jump back to the actual level! Not unless I can get these planks to tilt back down the other way. They won't budge. You have got to be kidding me. Once you step on the tilting planks once, they freeze that way forever. I've never seen a game botch this up. So the game gives you an extra life for going down a path that kills you. Nice. Finally finished World 2, the Nasty Woods, and on to World 3, Frosty Heights. I can tell absolutely zero difference between Worlds 2 and 3. Next, they have you jump across a ton of mushrooms in a row. Big domed mushrooms where the curved jumping glitch is still in full force. And several times, even when I managed to dislodge Santa's fat ass from the mushroom, the game disables my double jump just out of spite. This is a precision-based 3D platformer that keeps unplugging your damn controls. And then there's this bullshit. You have to cross a narrow platform being swept over by swinging hammers. You have to stop precisely between the hammers to avoid dying, except your depth perception is non-existent. And it ends with a stretch of video game ice, the kind where it's physically impossible to stand still, hammers still sweeping over it, and having to somehow get under a hammer sweeping lengthwise and just hope that it knocks you through the checkpoint.
Screw it, I'm going.
And I really hope I don't die through the rest of this level because I'm not sure I'd be able to do that again. Oh, thank God. Up to World 4, the snowy roofs. Where are the roofs? It's just the same endless, nondescript floating platforms over nondescript void and mountaintops. The birds are back with a vengeance, planted over every major jump, and this level ends with you needing to cross a big-ass ice maze where you constantly slide into fires and enemies! No! 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 Yes! Yes! No! No! Yes! No! Yes! No! Won't you stop moving for just one damn second? Gee, what's down that path, I wonder? About a dozen presents that do nothing and 1 extra life in exchange for crossing more insta-kill terrain and birds. Yeah, inhale my dong, I'm not doing that. World 4 is actually vastly easier than the worlds preceding it because the terrain isn't bugged to hell. It's mostly just standing on floating platforms and jumping around as they float through hazards, though they do pull a dick move extraordinaire when the exit to the last stage of this world is hidden down where you can't see it. You can't look down, so you have to completely leap of faith your way to the exit and hope you don't miss. Up to the last world, modern times. It's mostly a series of pistons that launch you into the air, big-ass propellers floating out in the middle of space, and humongous gears just sitting in midair, not actually driving anything and not connected to jack. You know, exactly like we have in modern times. This final world is a cakewalk compared to what you cross to get here. The hardest part is the pistons, where you get launched into the air and have to land on a tiny square so as to not die, with no shadow and a screwed up camera to where you can't gauge your jumps. But by now you've pretty much acclimated to even that if you got this far. World 5 just completely gives up any pretense that you actually give a crap about the gifts. Now there are branching paths and elaborate side roads through pretty much every level to where it's impossible to get all the gifts without extensive backtracking that'll kill you several times over. I guess they figured that it's the end of the game. It's too late to give a crap about extra lives now. I mean, look at this! Most of this level's gifts are spread over a huge floor of flipping tiles that's further covered by like a dozen swinging hammers. And that space is 100% optional because you can just go around and continue the level. It's cartoonish how utterly useless the game's central mechanic has become. Oh, and what happens when you finally get to the end of this hellhole? Congratulations, you win. Well, la-ti-da. Oh, and the classic mode, basically just a survival mode with no level select and only one kind of present. Only the exact number of presents that you need to collect each stage for an extra life changes from level to level because everything's a haphazardly thrown together mess. Yeah, I think I'm done here. The HD in the name clued me in that this game is probably a remake, and sure enough, there was a PC game called Santa Claus in Trouble released in December of 2002. It plays the same as the classic mode, so fine, it's a remaster of a pretty old game. You can forgive them for not having figured out the finer details of 3D platforming yet. Except that Super Mario 64 came out 6 years prior to this. Mario 64 was 1996, and Crash Bandicoot was 1996, Shadows of the Empire was 1996, Spyro the Dragon was 1998, Sonic Adventure was 1998, Banjo-Kazooie was 1998, Rocket Robot on Wheels was 1999. I think Rocket's more obscure, but it's friggin' amazing. Go check it out. Point is, multiple different game devs had cracked multiple different formulas for solid 3D platformers before Santa Claus in Trouble was developed, and yet it plays like it was made from scratch off pure guesswork. Even licensed games had this down. Toy Story 2 rules, and it was 1999! Actually, though, there is a well-known mainstream game that Santa Claus in Trouble seemed to crib notes from. You know what other platforming game very infamously does that bullshit where every single time you jump, the camera swoops into an overhead view that restricts your vision? Bubsy 3D. I haven't actually played Bubsy 3D, don't have a console that runs it, but based on my research, no attack function, a grossly high number of collectibles that don't really do anything, strict tank controls with no ability to sidestep, one-hit deaths, no camera control, and a camera zoomed in too tightly to properly see the world around you? Santa Claus in Trouble plays like it was deliberately modeled after Bubsy 3D, one of the most notoriously shitty games ever made. And yeah, Bubsy 3D was also 1996. It's possible that it's pure coincidence, but there's enough time gap that it could have been on purpose. But you know what? The rabbit hole doesn't even end there, and that's a pun that you'll get in a second. Santa Claus in Trouble was developed by a company called Joy Mania, and 1 year after Santa Claus in Trouble, they developed Rosso Rabbit in Trouble. It has the same menu, the same gameplay setup, the same help screen, the same crappy controls. It's the same game with different levels. They went full Ninja Bread Man on this bitch. And then a year after that, they made Santa Claus in Trouble again. And that sequel is where all the shark-tastic bugged levels of Worlds 2, 3, and 4 came from. And yes, it still plays exactly the same. And that was the last game to Joy Mania's name until this amalgamation of their pre-existing games in 2020. Almost 2 decades of gaming advancement, and nobody thought, gee, maybe we should fix the controls, or physics, or everything? Although I guess in a way this game is a bargain. You get both original shitty games in one package. It's like the most mediocre Christmas miracle. Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.